Everyone. Let me introduce myself. My name is Salma Elvia Nabilah. My student ID number 121060004. I'm from class 1A. I'm a student of English Educational Study Program at Swadaya Gunung Jati University. And today I will explain the ancient periods materials. Okay, let's begin. We get into the materials, there are some contents from ancient periods. The first is the ancient periods, the two new civilizations, three Old English literatures, four early English poets, seven until ancient three, and five the invasions of Scandinavians, and the last prosaic period. First is about ancient periods. And the point number one, Celts inhabited England. So, in the periods around the beginnings of the era of the Masahi, the inhabitants of the islands were from the Celts tribes, and then they are still relatively primitive. The number two, Celts as the language, and then the Celts use a different Celts language than English. And then the number three, in 50 AC Romans invited to England, made it Roman civilization. So in 50 Masehi, the Roman army occupied England permanently, and then made the province of the Roman Empire. And then under Roman rules, the indigenous populations acquired civilizations. So number four, in 40 1000 Roman soldiers withdrawn for good. In 40-1000, Roman army was withdrawn from England forever. And the next is about five Celts turns west towards Germany's invasions, Jews, Angles, and sections from nether Germany. In the Celts who used to reach helps protected from the Roman army were now unable to defend themselves against the Germanics, and these tribes were Jews, Angles, and sections who comes from northern Germany, and they are the ancestor of most British people today. And the sixth about the language turns to ancient English. English sections, Middle English, the language they used was Old English, which was also called Middle English 1100 until 1500, and eventually become Modern English 1500. Next is about new civilizations. There are several points. The first, the spreadings of Christian countries, and the two monasteries with centers of knowledge, and the three from spoken to written cultures. So, well, we can see the next slides about the explanations of new civilizations. Okay, here the explanations of new civilizations. The first is one of the important events after establishing the Germanic tribes in England was the entry and spread of Christianity, and at the end of the 6th century. And the number two, monasteries founded and become centers of knowledge. And the number three, it was at times that English literatures, which was previously oral literatures, began to be written down. Next is Old English literatures. The one is divided into two, those carried by Germany's tribes, and the old ones. Old English literatures can be divided into two groups. The first group is the literatures brought by the Germanic tribes from their home countries on Europe's continents, and included the second categories are literatures created after the tribes settled on the British Isles. And then the number two, the two were recorded for the sects of Christians. So the groups above can be searched until now thanks to the entry of Christians in the British Isles. And the number three, monks rules. It was the monks who collected and wrote down the literary products of the literators, and then therefore, after being written, cannot be separated from the Christian's influence. And the number four, view as the reflections of social conditions at the time. Before that, the Greek works in ancient English literatures was built. This work is a poems consisting of their thousands lines which tells of a long-lived heroism among the people and whose creators is unknown. So this poem tells a story about a hero and the name is Beowulf. He divided and killed a terrible creatures that inhabits coastal swamps named Grendels. Well, this is Grendel is a creature that has made the king's Hotgar's country unsafe. But after years of Beowulf fighting, and then he is finally killed while fighting a dragon in his struggle and to save his countries. Now, back the point about the build is a reflection of the conditions at the time. And where life at the time is not easy and requires physical strength, courage, awareness of obedience, loyalties, and self-respect. And the number five is other English sections forms sewers, towns, ruins, living as a minstrels, the battle of Vernon works, the battle of mountains, the severers, monologues, the ruins, Dayers, minstrels, and else. Number six, generalist poems reflect serious and gloomy feelings. And the number seven, other characteristic, sensitive to natures, the beliefs of destinies, the prominence of manhood and loyalty. And the last is most poems are religious. Okay, the next slides. There are several points from early English poets, 7 until 8th centuries. The first point is Cadmon's from Whitby monasteries, were Hebrews containing Genesis Exodus stories. The number two, Shane Wolves from Anglia, the Curious Julians, the Poets of the Opposites, and Aliens. And the only English poet mentions his name. And the number three is about the English no longer Germanic part of Northern Europe. Okay, well, in the next slides, we will know about the experienced early English poets. Explanations Early English poets. The first poet was a resident of Whitby Abbey, thought of how he got ability to verse and then created a rhyme in English based on the Bible. We find in other writings he was a 7th century Northumbrian writer and scholar. And the next is the Saint of Wolves was a poet from the regions of Anglia, while in the 8th century wrote religious poetry including the Curious Juliana, the poets of the Opposites and Aliens. And he is the only ancient poet to put his name on his works. And the numbers three, so English is no longer just Germany but has become part of Western Europe in terms of beliefs and ideas. And why? The answer because in addition to each of the poets' synonyms, there are also a number of old English poems about the religions and whose authors are unknown. And all of these old English religious poems are of the same types as other religious poems in the Western Europe. And thanks to their culture's contact with Roma, so England is no longer just Germany but has become part of Europe. Next is about the invasions of Scandinavians. There are 3 points. The first is Northumbria destroys, the two all cultures and literary works destroys, and the three only small fragments remained written in west sections. Okay, let's see about the explanations in the next slides. Explanations of the Scandinavians' invasions. The first, the distractions of Northumbria, because towards the end of the 8th centuries, the Scandinavians invaded the British coast and finally destroyed Northumbria. And the number two, because of distractions of Northumbria, because all the culture's achievements that had been achieved until then had to be destroyed, include the literatures of the areas. And the number three, most of the works preserved to that have been translated into the West Section's dialects. And the king of the West Sections tried to salvage the culture's treasures, but his works was destroyed, and with the destructions of Northumbria literatures, and then period of poetry ended. The last content from the ancient periods is prosaic periods. The first, in the 9th century, England was one step ahead. So, in any literature, prose usually comes along after poetry. This trait is very important in an era where most of the people cannot read and write. So England went a step further because in the 9th century it already had prose literatures. And in that century, Europe's countries in general were still in the stage of poetry. And then the number two, it because of King Alfred from Wessex, age 171 until 901. So this British feat was achieved thanks to King Alfred, who ruled Wessex between the years age 171 until 901. And estate above his sought to save the cultural products of the British people in Northumbria. However, this area and everything had already been destroyed. The number three, Alfred managed to return England as it had ever been. So the King Alfred tried to return England to the level of cultures that had been reached during the time of BD. And the number four, educational was need. Number five, many books were translated. And the next, pastoral care by Faust Georges was translated. And the book that was first translated was Pastoral Care by Georges. This book was explained to be translated for the first time so that it could be used as a guide for the knowledge who at the time were still lacking in the knowledge. And then Ecclesiastes Histories, the English people by Bede, and books that Alfred translated so that his people could know the history of his nations. Historical events were recorded for 2 centuries in a section chronicle. So the King Alfreds also ordered to record important events in his kingdoms. The Nine Universal History and Geography by Horatius. It is a major historical work at the time. And the number 10, Constellations of Philosophy by Boethius. So the following works of philosophy are very, very popular. And the number 11. So in the last, Kings Alfred become the first pioneers for English prose. So I think that's enough of me for today. I hope you can take a good lessons from what I said today. I'm so sorry if I had mistakes. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy my videos and I hope you have a good day. Always healthy and stay safe. Thank you so much.